Jewish identity, right? And it's called from my personal experience, right? Right? I grew up in a small town in Connecticut, right? And I personally witnessed the assimilation process in the United States. I'd like to describe it to you, have a better understanding of it. Have you all heard of the 7 wonders of the ancient world? Anybody name any of them?
The pyramids.
The pyramids.
Stonehenge.
Is that one of them? I don't know. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, Colossus of Rhodes, the Taj Mahal, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you go to the Empire State Building in New York, they have a lobby. In the lobby, they have an exhibit called the 7 Wonders of the Ancient World, right? Has anybody ever heard of the 8th? You know what the 8th is?
The Jews.
You take bus number, 1 to the last stop. Usually I give this talk in the old city. I say, go out the door, make a left, go down the steps, right? And you find yourself face to face with the 8th wonder of the ancient world, the Western Wall. Right? And what is the wonder of the Western Wall? The very fact that it's still standing is a wonder, right? Because if you know anything about the history of this city, right? Jerusalem has been destroyed and rebuilt over and over again by the Babylonians, by the Romans, by the Crusaders, by the Muslims. Why do you think they left that wall standing, right? I don't think they had in mind that it's going to be yeshiva, Eish Torah, opposite the yeshiva, of the guys to come to the yeshiva from the wall. They didn't have that in mind back then, There was actually a time when the wall was actually lost. Nobody knew where it was, right? Right? In fact, there was a garbage dump. Anybody know the name of the gate that goes out of the Kotel? What's it called? Dung Gate. Shara Ashpot. Dung Gate. Why is it called Dung Gate, right? It was a garbage dump. Nobody knew where the wall was, right? A certain rabbi heard about this. So he put a couple, the legend goes, he put a couple of gold coins on top of the garbage dump. The people started finding gold. They started digging and digging and digging. They didn't find any more gold, but they uncovered the wall. Right?
Wow.
It says in the Zohar, that's the book of Jewish mysticism, that the Western Wall will never be destroyed. Right? I heard that during the 6-Day War, a shell actually hit the wall and it didn't go off. Right? So there's a wall in Jerusalem that you cannot destroy. Everyone in the world knows there's a wall in Jerusalem that you cannot destroy. Does it make a difference to them? Maybe not. But there's a wall in Jerusalem that you cannot destroy. And that brings us to the 9th wonder of the ancient world. What's the 9th wonder? What you said before. You and you and you and me, the Jewish people. There's a nation that you cannot destroy. And when you study world history, you study about the ancient Phoenicians, ancient Sumerians, ancient Greeks, Romans, Persians, there's always one little paragraph about the ancient Hebrews who gave monotheism to the world. And no one bothers to ask the question, why is it that the ancient Hebrews are still here, right? Have you gone touring in the Jewish Quarter? Right? In the Jewish Quarter, they have archaeological diggings from the Canaanite period, from the Byzantine period, from the Roman period, and from the Jewish period. Someone suggested to the Minister of Tourism, make it a little more interesting, why don't you have a Byzantine show you the Byzantine ruins, a Canaanite, the Canaanite ruins, a Roman, the Roman ruins, and the Jew, the Jewish ruins? There's only one problem. There are no Romans, there are no Byzantines, there are no Canaanites. The only ones left are the Jews, right? Yeah. Anyone been up to Caesarea up in the north? Caesarea, they have this Roman amphitheater. I took my wife there a couple of years ago. Who sells tickets to see the Roman ruins? A Jew, right? Now, if the Romans, we knew about that. They turn over in the grave, right? They thought the Romans are taking Jewish ruins, right? The Romans are gone, the Greeks are gone, and the Jews are still here, right? Right? We survived, right? What's the secret of our survival? What's the secret of our survival? Some people think there's something special about the Jews. Every nationality has their specialty. The French are famous for their foods, right? The Germans for their music. The Russians, they write novels. The Americans, they have technology. The Jews, we survive. That's our thing. Right? Any world travelers over here? Anybody been to Rome? In Rome. You ever hear? Did you see the Arch of Titus?
Probably I was a bit younger.
Titus was the general who destroyed the Second Temple. He came back to Rome in victory, built this gigantic arch, which is still standing today, right? And it says on it 2 words. You know what it says in the Arch of Titus? There's 2 words. Judah Caputa. He had the Jews carrying in chains, carrying the menorah depicted on it. Judah Caputa. Judah is kaput. Judah is captured. That's the end of the Jewish people. I mean, what did Titus expect to happen when you take a nation and you exile them, right? We call it in America, we call it the melting pot. You know, they say the 11th commandment that all the Jews in America keep, thou shalt melt, right? What does the melting pot mean? When an Italian moves to America, first generation speaks Italian. Second generation understands Italian. Third generation knows his grandfather was Italian. And the fourth generation is American of Italian extract. Right. That's what Titus expected to happen to the Jews. Right? Somebody wrote in the back of the Arch of Titus the words, Am Yisrael Chai. Right? We're still here. The Jews, they're gone. The Romans are gone. We're still here. Anyone been to Greece? Right? Athens? I was in Athens. Ever hear of the Acropolis? Ever been to the Acropolis? Nice old building. Do you know anybody who wants to rebuild the Acropolis? Anybody still believe in the pantheon of Greek gods? Right? We say Yibon HaMikdash. We talk about the Greeks are gone, the Romans are gone, and the Jews are still here. What is the secret of our survival, right? The Jews survived. That's our thing, right? But that's not really true, because not all the Jews survived. You ever hear of the Karaim, the Karaites? Actually, before that was the Tzukim, the Sadducees, right? They denied the oral law. You ever hear of the Hellenists, right? Yeah. Hellenists were a group of Jews that took on Greek culture, right? And they built a temple to Zeus on the Temple Mount, right? Right? The Maccabees fought the Hellenists first before they brought the Greeks in. The story of Hanukkah is the Hellenists, right? Anybody have any friends who were Hellenists? You know anybody who's Hellenists? They didn't survive. Sadducees denied the oral law. Then they make up their own oral law. Anybody have any friends who were Sadducees? Right? They didn't survive either. There was a later group called the Karaites. The Karaites, there's still actually some Karaites. There's a Karaite synagogue in the old city, right? How many people pray there? I have no idea. They're dying out. They used to be very powerful. There's a famous story about the Karaites came to the Sultan of Turkey. And they said to the Sultan of Turkey, we are the original Jews. What a chutzpah, right? The other Jews came later. So I never heard that before. In that case, I would like a debate. I would like a rabbi and a Karaite to come to my palace and debate the issue. All right? So a rabbi and Karaite come to the Sultan's palace. What do you take off when you go into the Sultan's palace?
Shoes.
Your shoes. The Karaite takes off his shoes, puts it on the side. The rabbi takes off his shoes, holds it in his hand, and he walks into the Sultan carrying his shoes in his hand. He says, why are you carrying your shoes in your hand? He says, we have an old tradition that when God spoke to Moses on the burning bush, right, and he said, take off your shoes, there was a Karaite standing there, and he stole his shoes. The only time there's carrots around, we hold our shoes in our hand. And the Karaite said, that's ridiculous. Everybody knows in the days of Moses, there were no Karaites, right? End of debate. Got it? Every group of Jews that took on some other culture, when that culture went off the face of history, so did the Jews. The only Jews that survived, meaning kept their identity as Jews, were the ones who were loyal to the Torah. Historical fact. The only Jews, if we could identify ourselves today as Jews, because our ancestors were loyal to the Torah. It's a historical fact. But here, the Jews survived almost 2,000 years. We came back to our country, we renewed our language, right? Unparalleled in history. What's the picture in the year 2015? Anybody know the intermarriage rate in the United States today? 60%, 70%. I believe in California it's 70%, 80%. Every other marriage with a Jew is a non-Jew. This guy goes to China, teaches himself Chinese, becomes a Chinese doctor. And his way back to the States, he stops off in India. He became very friendly with a Hindu monk. What does a Chinese doctor have in common with a Hindu monk? 2 Jewish boys from Brooklyn. Guy goes to Thailand, Buddhist monastery. Top monk comes up to me, are you Jewish? Yes, so am I. Where are you going? I'm going to Israel. What are you going to do? I'm going to work on the kibbutz. I did that too. There's no spirituality there at all. That's what the Buddhist monk said. I'm thinking of checking out a yeshiva in Jerusalem. Oh, a yeshiva in Jerusalem, that's a great idea. One of our fellow monks got a color brochure about a yeshiva in Israel from his mother. She wrote him, if you have to be a religious fanatic, you might as well be a religious fanatic in your own religion. I'd be a Buddhist. This girl comes around collecting money. Save the seals, save the seals, save the seals. Did you know that the Japanese are killing all the humpback whales? The humpback whales going extinct. Tell me, you a Jewish girl? Yeah. You ought to be collecting money to save yourself. You're going extinct. By the year 2030, I don't know exactly, the Jewish population in the United States is supposed to go, according to statistics, the Jewish population is supposed to go down from close to 6 million to 200,000, like that. I don't know the exact statistics numbers. I mean, they're not getting married, intermarriage, assimilation. I mean, if you think that's an exaggeration, right? There was a study made a number of years ago. They have a number of Jewish periodicals. They have it on the wall over there, right? There's a businessman in California that businessmen deal with statistics. Dry statistics, right? They make decisions based on statistics, right?
Yeah.
It's a survey, right? Just based on dry statistics, right? Take 100 children in a typical non-Orthodox community in the United States. How many will intermarry? At least 50. At least 50. How many will get married at all? Right? Approximately 20% don't bother getting married, right? You're left with 30. Okay, say 15 girls, 15 boys, right? And 15 couples. How many kids will they have? 2, 1.2. Say 2, okay. You have 15 couples, you have 30. Second generation, 30. Half intermarried, 15. 5 don't get married, you're left with 10, okay? 5 boys, 5 girls. They have 10 kids, right? 5 intermarry. 1 doesn't get married, all with 4. 2 kids, 4 kids, 2 intermarry, finished, right? Just based on dry statistics, right? For contrast's sake, let's take 100 children from a typical Orthodox community in the United States, right? How many will intermarry? Probably none, but I'll say maybe 5. How many got married at all? Again, probably none, but maybe 5. You're left with at least 90, okay? 45 couples. How many kids will they have? I have 8, and I'm the black sheep of my family because my sister has 10, my brother has 12. All right, but let's say 5, a conservative estimate, 5, okay? So you have 45 times 5, math majors, how much is that? 225, I believe, right?
Yeah,
225?
That's right. Yeah, it is.
All right, how many intermarry? Maybe 10. How many married at all? Maybe 15. You're left with at least 200, right? Yeah. How many kids will they have? It's 100 couples, 500. So just based on dry statistics, the Orthodox community will be a much larger percent of the Jewish community in the United States in the years to come. And that statistic doesn't make us happy. We're not happy about the statistic, right? It's like saying there was a shipwreck, right? And 10% of the survivors on the boat, 90% are in the water. Come back an hour later, guess what? 100% of the survivors on the boat. You know why? Because the sharks ate up all the ones that were in the water, right?
Yeah.
Does that make you feel good? Does that make you feel good? No, not at all right? But here we have a paradox. On the one hand, the Jews survived for so long. On the other hand, we're going extinct, right? What happened? What changed? This question bothered me for many years. See, I'm a 4th generation American. My great-grandfather came to Texas in the 1890s, right? He was a rabbi in Galveston, Texas. Anybody knows the history of Texas? In the early 1900s, there was a tidal wave, a hurricane that wiped away half the city of Galveston, right? I say, I'm here today because my great-grandfather kept Shabbat, right? He had a butcher store on the harbor. He lived in the other end of town, and the tidal wave was on Shabbat when he was home, not in the store. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, right? No. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut. None of my friends were religious, but almost every one of them, their grandparents were. How many people had Orthodox grandparents? Raise your hands, right? We're holding a generation later, right? Great-grandparents, right? Actually, everybody should raise their hand, right? Almost everybody. Yeah. How long ago did your great-grandparents live? Less than 100 years ago. It's less than 100 years, right? 100 years is a very short period of time in Jewish history. So the question always bothered me, what changed the demographics so radically in such a short period of time? This question bothered me for many years. So I did a study on it, which I'd like to share with you today. And I call it the Fiddler on the Roof syndrome. Ba-bam. Remember this Fiddler on the Roof, the Broadway show? I remember when it came out in the 1960s. And all my secular neighbors were heads over heels. Tradition! I'm trying to figure out what is the appeal of Fiddler on the Roof to a secular audience. You see beards and tzitzis and matchmakers. What's the appeal to a secular audience? So I did a study on it, which I'd like to share with you. So in order to understand this topic, we have to go back a little bit into Jewish history. Throughout our history, the Jews have been thrown out of their countries. They threw us out of France. They threw us out of England. They threw us out of Germany. They threw us out of Spain. What year, anybody know?
1492.
1492, right? The same year Columbus set sail for America, the Jews in Spain were on the top echelon of power. They had mansions and servants and high government positions. And Ferdinand Isabella made a decree, either you convert to Christianity or you leave Spain with 2 suitcases. They had to leave everything behind. And it is the greatest glory of the Jewish people, unparalleled in the annals of mankind. Close to 2/3 of the Jews of Spain got up and left. Right? There was a rabbi named Barbanel. He wrote a commentary on the Torah. He also happened to be the finance minister of Ferdinand Isabella. He financed the trip of Columbus, right? They said, you're a good Jew, you can stay. He said, no thanks, I'll go make people too, right? Columbus writes in his diary, he couldn't leave Barcelona harbor. It's full of boats taking Jews, right? 2/3 of the Jews left. The remaining 1/3 were called Marranos, right? They outwardly converted, secretly kept Judaism. If they were caught doing anything Jewish, they were tortured on the rack until they confessed, and then they were burnt at the stake. That was called the auto de fe. That was the Spanish Inquisition. My point is, when the Jews left Spain, they went to Portugal. When they left Portugal, they went to Amsterdam. When they started rebuilding their community, what is the first priority when you rebuild a Jewish community? What's your first priority? A shul, a synagogue, and a mikvah, and the cemetery. But what's their first priority? What are Jews into? Don't say food. What are Jews into? Education, right? My son the doctor, my son the lawyer. Today's college education. It used to be Torah education. You built a yeshiva and passed on the tradition from father to son, from mother to daughter. That's how it was in all generations, right? When the Jews came to America in large numbers in the turn of the century, it was a little bit different. They weren't thrown out of Europe en masse. There was persecution, there was poverty, and many Jews came to the new country. But the Jews came in those days, for the most part, were not the learned ones, right? The learned Jews knew it was difficult to be a Jew in America in those days. They were basically Shabbat observant, kosher observant, but they were not the learned ones, right? With some exceptions, but generally speaking, right? And what was their, first priority? Can you guess? Coming to America, make a living, right? Make a living, right? And what was the problem they had? Shabbos, right? Assimilation in the United States did not begin with Jews for Jesus, did not begin with the stints of marriage, it began with Shabbos. If you didn't work on Shabbos, you lost your job. Saturday, didn't come on Saturday, Monday, new job, right? So some Jews, got a new job every week, right? They were fired. One week they said, I have a stomachache. Next week, headache. Next week, pink slip. That means you're fired, right? Right? I heard of a guy who put on his took a whole wall of pink slips, right? I was fired for Shabbos, right? They got a new job. I mean, this is from my time, so I spoke to a man, remember those days, he said, he worked one time on Shabbos, he couldn't live with himself, right? There were some Jews who started their own businesses so they shouldn't have to start work on Shabbos. Can you imagine a penniless immigrant starting his own business? Very difficult. Some of them did very well. There were multi-billion-dollar corporations today that were started by Jews who didn't want to work on Shabbos. I believe Macy's and Levi Strauss and others like that, right? But the majority said, if I can't work on Shabbos, I'm going to starve. You're allowed to break the Shabbos to save your life. They got up early in the morning. They said their Shabbos prayers very quickly. They ate their Shabbos meal very quickly, and they went to work. When they came home from work, they went straight to the rabbi's lecture. Somehow they could live with that dichotomy. But their children couldn't. Can you imagine teaching your children about Shabbat when you go to work on Shabbat? Very difficult. They didn't start yeshivas. The children went to public school. No kippah in public school. Your friends aren't Jewish in public school. You wanted your children to have some sort of a Jewish education. There was a malamed. A malamed was a tutor that went around the homes teaching the children. Who was a malamed? Usually an old man who couldn't do anything else. My great uncle from Texas told me about his malamed. He taught him some Chumash, some Bible, some Mishnah. Gemara, he didn't know, so they couldn't teach him. He taught him whatever he knew, right? And what's the children's attitude? I'm an American. I speak English. I go to public school. What's this old man from Europe? All he can speak is Yiddish. What's he going to teach me about life? See, we have an entire generation, maybe our grandparents' generation growing up, without Shabbos, without kippah, and without much Jewish education. But one thing they did have, Jewish identity. They were proud of being Jewish. And certain things stood out. They saw their parents and grandparents living a total Jewish life. Certain things stood out in their parents' and grandparents' lives that they considered to be the most important elements of Judaism. And these elements they kept very strictly. For example, the high holy days, right? You had to be in the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I'm talking about 50, 60 years ago, and now he said it was unheard of a Jew would not be in the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, right? What was another important Jewish yurtzeit, when someone died, they would say Kaddish, right? They would say Shiva was very important, right? Yizkor, the Yizkor prayer we say the last day of the holidays was a Yizkor prayer. I still remember the Yizkor Jews. You know the Yizkor Jews, right? Kippur they usually came, but the last day of Sukkot, last day of Pesach, last day of Chutz, they would come, drive up to the shul, come inside, say the prayer for the dead, and drive home. Yizkor prayer, all right? I doubt if there are any Yizkor Jews left around today, because I'm 100% sure that their children don't say the prayer for them. If that's the subtotal of your Judaism, there's no way you can pass it on to another generation. Making a Passover Seder was an important Jewish value. Bar mitzvah, what else? Hanukkah candles, right?
For sure.
And what was the most important Jewish value of our parents' and grandparents' generation? Tell me. Who do you marry?
Jew.
A Jew. And for the most part, they married Jews. Right? For the most part, they married Jews. And then our parents' generation made a mistake. And they haven't caught their mistake until today. And I submit to you that their mistake is obvious. We can see very clearly exactly what their mistake was. They thought they could give over the Jewish identity and the Jewish values that they really had to their children in a vacuum. Here, take a Jewish value. Here, take a Jewish value. Can't give over any value, Jewish value, any value out of context. Out of context doesn't work, right? They told their children, you don't have to go to synagogue a whole year, but 3 days a year you be there. Right? And most important, you have to keep a kosher home. You can eat out in the Chinese restaurant, but keep a kosher home, right? And the most important thing is to marry a Jew. You can date her if she's not Jewish. You can live with her, but don't marry her, right? And our tradition says, hold on 1 minute. Right. Why can't I do everything? Right? Why should I go to synagogue if I go 3 days a year, I go the whole year? And why should I keep a kosher home? Eat out in Chinese restaurant. Why can't I? Are you bigots? The parents, the parents can't answer that question, right? It's not an intellectual decision. It's a value that they have, right? Right? Why do I call this the fiddler on the roof syndrome, right? If you go to, what's the appeal of the fiddler on the roof to a secular Jew? You go to many bookstores, they sell pictures of Hasidim with beards, dancing with Torah scrolls, and many secular Jews put them in their homes,
Yeah.
Maybe their grandfather looked like that. Hasidim with beards and tribals doesn't threaten them. You think they put a picture of a clean-shaven college graduate wearing a black kippah studying Talmud? Maybe it's their son, right? They wouldn't put his picture there. That's too threatening. What about me, right? Everybody's looking for their roots. Alex Haley found his roots in Africa, right? I think that the appeal of the fiddler on the roof to a secular Jew, he makes the secular Jew feel very comfortable, right? We were all mishtatel, we were all in Anatevka, right? And we had beards and tzitzis and matchmakers, right? And we were ignorant then too. You ask me, how did the Jews get started? I tell you, I don't know, but it's tradition. But today we're modern Americans, modern English, modern Frenchmen. We still remember with nostalgia the good old days in Anatevka. Don't have to change anything. Don't have to do anything. Just feel proud of being Jewish. I think Jew makes you feel Jewish, makes you secondly feel very, very proud of our roots, right? You don't have to do anything. Don't change anything. Just feel proud of being Jewish, right? You ever hear of a gastronomic Jew? What's a gastronomic Jew? What makes me Jewish? Bagels and lox, gefilte fish, chicken soup, right? The cardiac Jew. I have a good Jewish heart. I give to the UJA, right? And then you have the nostalgia Jew. The good old days at Anatevka, right? They sent their children, I forgot to go say this before, they sent their children to Hebrew school, right? What do you learn in Hebrew school? I used to teach Hebrew school. What do you learn in Hebrew school, right? Barely how to read Hebrew. Few Bible stories. What's the most important thing you learn in Hebrew school? Who knows? You guys went to Hebrew school in America?
Yeah.
The 4 questions, right? Come to the Passover Seder, ask 4 questions and go to sleep. 4 questions, no answers, right? Till your bar mitzvah, main thing being the bar. Forget about the mitzvah. Have the party, forget about the mitzvah, right? That's the end of the Jewish rabbi. I didn't have to go to Hebrew school no more. I'm bar mitzvah, right? Sometimes we say, stop these bar mitzvah, right? So now this Jewish boy comes home, right? With a beautiful blonde Swede. I'm in love. Didn't you teach me love conquers all? But she's not Jewish. So what? Are you bigots? Right. But we gave you such a good Jewish education. We sent you to Hebrew school. We learned 4 questions, no answers. Right? We saw fiddler on the roof. We ate bagels and lox. It gave you such a good Jewish education. What did we do wrong? Right? Today's reached a point where as long as she's nice, as long as they're happy, we see exactly what they did wrong. You can't give over a value out of context. See, we have a paradox. On the one hand, the Jews survive for so long. The other Jews, the Jews are going extinct, right? What's the key to the paragraph? Jewish education, right? Are you all proud of being Jewish, right? What are you proud of being, right? What does it mean to be Jewish, right? How many people are ready to die for the Jewish people? Raise your hand. Die. Israel attack tomorrow. Whoever is, can I shoot a gun? Is needed in the front lines. How many volunteer? Right? Sometimes everybody raises their hand. Nobody raises their hand. Right? It's hard. Let me make it easier. You don't have to. How many people here are ready to live for the Jewish people? Everybody, raise your hand. To live for the Jewish people. We're not asking you to die. Know what it is you're ready to die for, and live for it. Right? You're proud of being Jewish. What does it mean? Right? This girl comes to me with a Jewish star around her neck, a necklace. I said, "Tell me, what makes you Jewish? Israeli, right? What makes you Jewish? See my necklace? That's what makes you Jewish. Better not lose your necklace. It's not going to be Jewish, right?" I'll tell you. I live in Israel and I speak Hebrew. I say, we're not Jewish. We're Israeli, right? So what about all the Jews that live in America, right? They don't speak Hebrew. They live in Israel. They're not Jewish, right? Go down to the Arab marketplace. No, don't go down to the Arab marketplace. But they speak Hebrew. What do they say? We're Israeli. You're Jewish. So about for a minute. You know what makes me Jewish? Deep in my heart, I have this deep feeling of affinity, of oneness with the Jewish people. That's what makes me Jewish. Say, deep in my heart, I have a deep feeling I'm a doctor. Will you let me operate on you? Let me into the White House. I have a deep feeling in my heart. I'm the president. I don't mean to put down deep feelings. Deep feelings are very important. But just because you have a deep feeling doesn't guarantee your grandchildren are going to be Jewish, right? A soldier takes off his uniform, throws down his gun, dissipates his orders. Boy, am I proud of being a soldier. What are you proud of being, right? Let's sit back for a minute and be proud of being Jewish. We belong to an old established firm, right? Our biggest competitors are our imitators, right? Who taught the world morals and ethics, right? The Romans, the Greeks, right? A Roman soldier is about to enter a city to pillage, to rape, to murder, to loot. And you stop, hold on, buddy, 1 minute. I want to ask you one question. What right do you have, philosophically speaking, to go into that city and to pillage, rape, murder? What would he tell you before he chopped your head off? What would he tell you? Anybody know Roman philosophy? Very simple. I'm stronger, right? Might makes right. And if might makes right and you have the might, then right or wrong, you're always right, right? Wrong. Remember Camelot? If might makes right, then you have the might, then right or wrong, you're always right, right? Wrong. That's what they believe, right? Who taught the world that might does not make right? Who taught the world that right makes might? The Jewish people, right? We taught the world morals and ethics, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Torah, our soldiers, right? Proclaim liberty throughout the land. Those quotations from our Torah. All men are created equal. It's a Jewish concept. They even give us credit once in a while. In the United Nations, there's a wall called the Isaiah Wall. Ever hear of the Isaiah Wall? They will beat their swords and their plowshares. No more war. Isaiah, our boys, our prophets. We taught the world morals. So be proud of being Jewish. What are you proud of being? I said, soldier dissipates his orders. Those are God. Right? Proud of being a soldier. See, here we have a paradox. On the one hand, the Jews survived for so long. On the other hand, the Jews are going extinct. What's the key to the paradox? Jewish education, right? Learn, right? Find out what it is you're proud of being, right? Today we have a phenomenon called the Baal Tshuva movement. You have to appreciate the fact that this phenomenon is very unique in Jewish history. Never before in Jewish history has so many Jews come back to Torah, right? If you know anybody who remembers pre-World War II Europe, ask them one question. Do you remember anybody in your hometown before the war where the parents were not religious and the children were? You know what they'll tell you? I passed many people. Unheard of. The other way around happened all the time. The parents were religious, the children weren't, right? Oh, there was some Baal Tshuvas. Every town had their Baal Tshuva or so, but they were very rare and far between, right? Today, thank God, right? In Jerusalem alone, there must be over 30 yeshivas for beginners, right? For men, for women, English-speaking, French-speaking, Spanish-speaking, Hebrew-speaking, right? When you come to a yeshiva, they put it into context. Why Shabbos? Why kosher? Right? Why marry someone Jewish? Now it makes sense, right? So here we have a paradox. Here the Jews survived for so long. Here the Jews are going extinct. The key to the paradox is Jewish education, right? Jewish education, right? I want to talk a minute about the topic of intermarriage, right? I speak to many people who are considering intermarriage, right? They don't realize, when religion is not important to them before they're married, but after you're married, it makes a big difference, right? I always say, how are you going to bring the kids up? They say, we're going to give them the best of both. So I say, you got the least of either. How are you give them the best of both? Right. I mean, the most mixed up children. The children into marriage, they don't know if they're Jewish. The Jewish girls call me a goy. The non-Jewish girls call me a Jew. Very. I once said to someone, a girl who's in marriage, do you consider loyalty to be an important ingredient in a successful marriage? Yes, loyalty is very important. Well, this guy ain't loyal to his family, ain't loyal to his people, ain't loyal to his religion, but to you he's going to be loyal. That's what you think. Right? What's the best way to prevent an intermarriage, right? There's a book called How to Stop an Intermarriage, right? Very good book, right? But I think the best way is to give an analogy. What's an analogy? Imagine you're cleaning out your attic and you find an old baseball card collection, or a stamp collection, or a record collection, right? Covered with dust. You throw it in the garbage? Wait a minute. It might be valuable. Collectors pay a lot of money for an old Babe Ruth baseball card, or for a Beatle record, or for a rare stamp, right? Before you throw it in the garbage, have it evaluated. See if it's worth anything, right? So we say when you're about to intermarriage, that's throwing your Judaism in the garbage. That's treason against the Jewish people. Before you do that, make an evaluation. Stay away from each other for a little while. Come to a yeshiva, preferably in Israel, right? And find out what it is to be Jewish, right? Then you can make a decision, right? I know a story of a girl that actually did that. She came back, she said to her non-Jewish boyfriend she's not going to marry him. You know what his reaction was? Too bad Hitler didn't finish the job. And he said, that's the guy I was about to marry. That was the guy I was about to marry. So we have to find out, again, just to sum up, here the Jews survive for so long, here the Jews are going extinct, right? What's the key to the paradox? Jewish education. Come to a class, if you're in Israel now, come to a class, if you have any opportunities for a Shabbos, right? Learn about what it means to be Jewish. Jewish education, that's the antidote. Find out what it is you're ready to die for, and find out what it is you're ready to live for. Right? Famous classroom Rabbi Matti Berger, right? Does it make a difference whether God or not? Yes, it does. In three areas. In the personal level, on a national level, right, and a universal level, right? On a personal level, right? Someone lives their entire life as if there's a God. And he lives a moral life, and he does good things, and then he dies and finds out there is no God. Did he lose something? He lives a very good life, right? But somebody lives his life as if there is no God, right? And he finds out there is, boy, is he in trouble, right? So make sure on a personal level there's a God. Makes a big difference, right? On a national level, right? We're all proud of being Jewish, right? If there's no God, that means our ancestors were under the impression that they're different than everybody else, but it's just an illusion, right? There's no God, right? Nothing special about the land of Israel, no God, right? Zionism, there's no God, so what's special about Israel? Nothing, right? So we're proud of being Jewish, what you're proud of being, it makes a difference. And on a universal level, right? Are there certain morals that all mankind would agree to at all times? What do you say? Killing people for sport is a negative thing. Would all people agree to that at all times?
No.
You ever hear of the Romans, the Colosseums, right? The gladiators, thumbs up, thumbs down, right? So imagine a Jew comes into the Colosseum with a beard and payas and a big kippah, right? And a big sign in English, Hebrew, and Latin, Lo tirtzach, do not murder, right? How do you think the Romans would react before they throw him to the lions, right? Let me debate with you, Your name is, is Yankel, my name is Leo, whatever it is, right? I like what do you mean, don't murder? Romans don't murder. We're not allowed to murder. If a guy murders his wife in Rome, they'll crucify him, right? What do you call this? We call this entertainment, right? Well, we call it murder. Well, all these people who come here to eat popcorn and watch the people who kill each other, right? They consider it, who are you to say, right? What's the only answer? God. That's the only answer, right? It's the only answer, right? Who are you to say? Public opinion polls, right? Would all mankind agree that it's a negative thing to kill little babies? Infanticide, right? Well, people agree to that. Well, the Hindus,
Baby Hitler.
right? The Hitlers, in Pakistan, it was the Muslims that stopped the Hindus from murdering and killing babies, right? And when a Hindu dies, right? They burn his body in the funeral pyre. What was the old Hindu custom? Anybody know? The wives jump on the fire, or they throw them on. Don't you want to burn with your husband? He had 5 wives. They all burnt alive with their husband, right? That was the old custom in India, right? Of course, the British stopped it. Not because they wanted to interfere with a foreign religion. They just couldn't watch it. And the Indians are very upset about it. They said, it's our old revered tradition. Until the English said, we also have an old revered tradition. It's called hanging for murder. So they stopped. The British had a Bible. The Muslims had a Quran, right? Without God, there's no morality. So it makes a difference on the personal level, on a national level, and on a universal level. Okay. Any questions? Comments? Arguments? Okay, thank you very much.